welcome listeners to the BBC services to the Pacific in Auckland for a half hour of current affairs from Radio New Zealand International. Radio New Zealand International, Pacific Regional News. I'm Don Weisman. Fiji's Citizens Constitutional Forum says the government's amendment to its political parties decree defies the principles of universal suffrage and political equality. After last week's forcing most parties out of politics, the Fiji regime this week announced tough jail terms for media, referring to the now-defunct political parties, and the banning of parties using acronyms. The non-government organisation says these changes impose unwarranted limitations on people's rights and further cut media freedom. Its chief executive, the Reverend Akweli Mbaki, says the people must have the liberty to choose who they want as their leaders.
All political parties across the world are not perfect, but there are new rules being put in place in the framework of the People's Draft Constitution, and we should allow that to have its way and pave a path for a better form of governance. As it is, these amendments paving a path for the continuation of the current military rule, and that's not helping to restore confidence in the process.
The Reverend Akweli Mbaki of the Fiji Citizens Constitutional Forum. The Fiji government has dumped the People's Draft and is drawing up its own constitution. Media watchdog, the Pacific Freedom Forum, says Fiji's media has suffered a double whammy from the government this week. Titi Gobi says both the tightening of a decree threatening up to 5 years jail time for mentioning defunct political parties, as well as a hefty High Court sentence imposed on the Fiji Times newspaper, sent a worrying message to journalists. She says everyone's interested in the 2014 election, with people both inside and outside of Fiji wanting reliable information and covering political stories as part of this job. She also says she would encourage the Fiji interim government to use the Fiji Times established complaints procedure if there are stories published they don't like. Titi Gobi says the combination of the two actions by the regime is likely to scare journalists into self-censorship.
What we fear is that reporters and media organizations in Fiji will now just go back to censoring themselves heavily. And it starts with reporters. They go out and do jobs and say, I can't touch you, I might end up like that. And that's what we're fearing. Heading towards elections, you want to really promote a free and fair election, and that's going to happen only through the media. And if this is how it's starting, that is a worry.
Co-chair of the Pacific Freedom Forum, Titi Gobi. And the editor of the Fiji Times says it's business as usual after it was fined $170,000 for contempt of court. The newspaper was fined for reprinting an article by New Zealand's Sunday Star Times, which quoted Ty Nicholas of the Oceania Football Confederation questioning the Fiji judiciary. The editor, Fred Wesley, says the fine is hefty, but no meetings have been planned to consider whether it will appeal the court's decision.
We haven't deliberated over this. We haven't discussed this yet. For now, it's about attending to other issues, and that's where we'll leave it. It will come in its own due time.
Fred Wesley says staff have always strived to protect the integrity and credibility of the paper and says they will continue to make this a priority. One Indonesian soldier has been killed and another injured today after an unidentified group opened fire at a military post in Puncak Jaya in Papua. The Jakarta Globe reports that more than 5 people attacked the post, firing shots from about 300 metres away. The Puncak Jaya military chief, Lieutenant Colonel Joe Zimmering, has confirmed the attack but did not provide any further details. The reports say the soldiers at the post, along with police, exchanged gunfire with the attackers. The paper also says another armed group attacked a group of soldiers who were heading to Mulia in Puncak Jaya at the same time. One soldier was wounded in that attack. The former head of Papua New Guinea's Defence Force says the Prime Minister, Peter O'Neill, is displaying strong leadership on resolving issues about the border shared with Indonesia. PNG's cabinet has ordered deployment of troops to patrol the border following tensions in the border between PNG citizens and Indonesia's military. Major General Jerry Singarok says the tensions highlight the poor management of the border by PNG authorities over many years. Peter O'Neill has voiced concern about what he calls continuous harassment of PNG citizens by Indonesia's military. Major General Singarok says the Prime Minister is right to speak frankly of the issue.
I think his statement alone has triggered off a series of diplomatic and bureaucratic processes
that will ensure maybe in the not too distant future positive outcomes on behalf of PNG authorities.
Major General Jerry Singarock. PNG's New Ireland provincial government has signalled plans to upgrade Kavieng Airport to an international facility. NTV reports that the Kavieng Airport project is slated to begin this year and is part of the province's bid for autonomy. The Minister for Civil Aviation, Stephen Davis, has announced the national government's support for the project. An estimated $2 million is needed for land release and compensation payment before the upgrade of the airport, including lengthening of the runway, can begin. The PNG Police Association says it's investigating why the government has yet to pay life insurance cover for more than 5,000 officers. The union signed an agreement with the police force in 2008 for staff insurance cover, and then the government promised to pay an annual sum of $2 million under the deal. The acting General Secretary of the Police Association, Martin Karoy, says he hopes police headquarters can provide answers as to why the money has not yet been paid.
We've tried to take it up in the budget almost every year since then, but money is not coming. I'm not sure it is probably because of administrative costs. Our people are not included in the budgetary projections. Perhaps it needs some further investigation to really ascertain what is happening.
Martin Karoy says the government now owes more than $9 million worth of life insurance cover. Says he plans to confront it once initial investigations are complete. There's cautious optimism that negotiations between Pacific nations and the European Union for an economic partnership agreement could be concluded by the end of this year. Pacific nations that are part of the African, Caribbean, Pacific group have been in talks with the EU to reach an EPA since 2002. Last year, Pacific leaders expressed frustration with the negotiations and the EU's lack of flexibility. Cook Islands Secretary of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, Dr. Jim Gosselin, says after a couple of fruitful meetings with the EU, it appears they're beginning to resolve the outstanding issues. He says these include export taxes and rules of origin for fisheries products from the region into the EU.
We've got them on the table and we have a process going now, and we've been having the technical meetings, and as I say, we're cautiously optimistic that we will have a positive result we can all be happy with, or at least satisfied with, by the end of the year.
Dr. Jim Gosselin says one of the priorities in the region is to have free access to the EU market for fresh, chilled and frozen fish. Solomon Islands police have extended security surveillance at the border between the eastern province of Tumotu and Vanuatu. The police commissioner, John Lansley, says they posted an officer in Tumotu's provincial capital, Lata, to keep an eye out for criminals crossing the Vanuatu border. He says it's the first time the Royal Solomon Islands Police has assigned an officer to monitor possibly illegal activity on the eastern border. He says they've been concentrating on providing security surveillance at the border between Western and Choiseul provinces and Papua New Guinea's Bougainville. He says there are frequent illegal border crossings from Bougainville into the Solomons. Mr. Lansley also says there's a need for improved border management that includes customs and immigration officials. And that's a bulletin of Pacific Regional News from Radio New Zealand International.